Okay, good night, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us as we are sponsored by, co-sponsored by Shelley Zeitlin for my refuah, Moshe Meir ben Esther Fadl, and for the Hatzlacha of his children, Eli, Orit, and Ora, by Eddie Chazan, L'Refuah Shalema, for Yedidya ben Penina, Shoshana bas Penina, and Simone bas Rachel, and also co-sponsored Lili Nishmas David ben Chaim for L'Refuah Shalema of Eliyahu Moshe Mechai Sarah and Yaakov ben Bas Yeleah, and for the Schus of Avram ben Yom Benish ben Malki Yehudas and family. We are holding on the bottom of Vavam and Beis, Dover Achar, Al Pi Shnayim Eidim, by the testimony of two witnesses. That means Al Pi Shnayim Eidim, by the mouth. Shaloite Sanhedrin Shemas Mepiat Meturgiman, that the Sanhedrin can't hear it from an interpreter. They have to hear it directly from the mouth of the witnesses. Hanolu Uze, there were foreign-speaking people. It doesn't say which language, but they spoke a foreign language. So Hanolu Uze, the Asla, the Kamei de Rava, they came before Rava. Uke Rava Turgaman Beinayu. Rava put there an interpreter. So asks the Gemara, how could he do that? That the Sanhedrin shouldn't hear it from an interpreter. The Sanhedrin should hear it directly from the witnesses. So the Gemara says, Rava understood the language. He just didn't know how to speak it. Rava made to have a yoda, made to have a imre. Rava knew enough of the language to understand what they were saying. It's just that he didn't know how to respond, and that's why he had to interpret it. So since he understood what they were saying, that's enough that it was al pi edim. Now, the Gemara tells us a situation over here is that Shelley owed Mark money, and Abi was a guarantor, that if Shelley defaults, then Abi would cover it. So Eloi and Tuvia kreve de arvahava. Eloi and Tuvia were relatives of Abi's, the guarantor. Savar Rapapa Lamema, Rapapa said that since they're not relatives of the principals, they're not relatives of Shelley and Mark, they're not relatives of them, that they should be able to testify on the loan. However, Amalei Rav Huna Braid Rav Yeshua Rapapa, Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, said to Rapapa, if Shelley defaults, Basar Arva Malva, Mark is going to go to take it from Abi, and therefore Abi is an interested party, and therefore relatives of Abi are disqualified from testifying about the loan. Now here we have a situation of Misha Nigmar Dinoi Uvarach. Barry was convicted, as you could very well understand. So Misha Nigmar Dinoi, Barry was convicted, and he fled. And he came before, they caught him, and he came before the same court that he was convicted. Ein Seisven es Dinoi. They don't reopen his case, but they give him the penalty forthwith. And if any case where in any case where two witnesses get up, Shelley and Yaakov gets up, that we testify about Barry, that he was convicted in the Bezdin of Munkach, Uploini Edav, and the Yisrael Fisher and Nachman were the witnesses. Harizeh Yahareg, we put Barry to death forthwith. Now, Sanhedrin Nayeges Ba'aretz U'B'Chutzlaretz. When the Sanhedrin Hagadol is operating in in Eretz Yisrael, then small circuit courts of 23 can operate even in the diaspora as long as the judges were smuchin from Eretz Yisrael. Now, Sanhedrin HaRegetz Echad Bashvua, a Sanhedrin that executes once in 7 years, that's considered already a Nikra Chavlonis. That's considered a destructive Bezdin. If they execute once in 7 years, that's already considered a destructive Bezdin. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Aimer Echad L'Shivim Shana. Now the Gemara is not sure if it means that even if once in 70 years they're considered destructive, or if once in 70 years that's normal. The Gemara is not sure what pshat is. Rabbi Tarf and Rabbi Akiva Aimrim, Ilu Hayinu b'Sanhedrin, if we would have been on the Sanhedrin, Nerag Adam Ma'olam, no man would ever be executed. Because we would ask so many questions in the Drisha v'Chakira that we would get them to contradict each other, or that they won't know what to answer. Shimon Gamliel says that's not a benefit, because if people aren't afraid of getting executed, there's no deterrent, and Afein Marbin Sheifri Dam Yisrael, then there will be many murderers by Klal Yisrael. So it's not good that it should be so clear that no one would ever be executed. We won't have a deterrent. The Gemara says, Lifnei Oisa Bezdin Hu de Ein Saisin. Only if Barry is brought to the Bezdin where he was originally convicted, we don't open up the case. Halifnei Bezdin Achar, but if he is brought to a different Bezdin, it implies that Saisin, we would open the case. But Hatani Seifa Kol Makom Shiyamdu Shnayim V'Yayimru, if Yaakov and Yisrael Fisher would get up and say, we testify about Barry, Shenigma Dina Bebezdin Pliny, that he was convicted in this and this court, Pliny Edav, and Avram Rezepkowitz and Yitzi Muller were the witnesses, Harizeh Yahareg, which implies even if it was in a different court. Says the Gemara, Mabai like Kasha Kan Beretz Yisrael Kan B'chutz La'aretz. Where we say that we don't reopen the case, that is if he was first convicted in a court in Eretz Yisrael, and now he was brought to a court in Chutz La'aretz, we don't reopen the case. But if he was first convicted in Chutz La'aretz, and now he was brought to a court in Eretz Yisrael, so there, because of Skusa Eretz Yisrael, we do reopen the case. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda ben Daistoya, Mishum Rav Shimon ben Shatach, Baruch me Aretz l'Chutz La'aretz, if Barry fled from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, Ein Seisrin es Dina, we don't reopen the case. Me Chutz La'aretz l'Aretz, but if he was first convicted in Chutz La'aretz, he fled to Eretz Yisrael, Seisrin es Dina, we reopen the case, Mepnei Zechusa shel Eretz Yisrael, because of the merit of Eretz Yisrael. Now, Sanhedrin Noihegas, the Sanhedrin operates even in Chutz La'aretz, Minani Mili, the Tana Rabbanim Vaya Elu Lachem Lechukas Mishmas L'Doirei Seichem B'chol Ma'ishvei Seichem, in all your dwelling places. L'man L'Sanhedrin Shenaheges Ba'aretz u'B'chutz La'aretz, that it practices in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. Ayim Kei Matal M'Loimer B'Sharecha, by your gates. B'Sharecha in Eretz Yisrael there are more courts. B'Sharecha Atamoish Batidin B'chol Pelech Pelech u'B'chol Ir V'Ir, in every province and even in every city. Every city should have a small circuit Sanhedrin of 23 people. U'B'chutz La'aretz, but in the diaspora Atamoish B'chol Pelech u'Pelech, you put it only in every province. The Atamoish B'chol Ir V'Ir, you don't put it in every city. Sanhedrin HaReges once in 7 years is considered a destructive Bezdin, and then it says once in 70 years. Ibayalu do they hold that achas l'shivim shana nikra chavlanas? They hold even if once in 70 years it's considered a destructive besdim. Or dilma once in 70 years arich ari. That's customary. Says you might take tishbi atar's kushas v'bais. We're not sure. Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Kiva, Aimer, Ilu Hayinu, if we would have been there. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? If they would have been there, nobody would get executed. What would they have done? What would they have done? Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Lazar, Dimrei Travai, Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Lazar would say, Reisim Treifa Harig or Shalom Harig. They would ask him, did the person that he killed, was he a Treifa? Because if he had a fatal flaw, an internal fatal flaw, then he killed a dead person, they wouldn't get the death sentence. So, Re'isim Treifa or Shalom. Did you see if he was a Treifa or a Shalom? Now, they couldn't know about his internal organs. And even if there was a PET scan, not a PET scan, even if they somehow did an autopsy on the body and found that he didn't have any trephas, but maybe Vidilma b'Mekayim Sayef, maybe in the place where the murderer cut him in the neck. And it's possible that in the place that he cut, there was already a perforation that rendered him a treifa. Dilma Mekayim Sayef Nekavava, maybe in the place where he was cut, there was already a hole, and it was a treifa, and there's no way to know about it. Says Gemara, yeah, but how would they have disqualified witnesses in a sexual adultery? Let's say Chatzkel committed adultery. So how would they disqualify the witnesses there? But they would ask them, did you see the man insert his male organ into the woman like an applicator into the bottle of eye medicine? In other words, even if he saw the man on top of her, but did they actually see the genitals come in contact? So the Gemara says, then how do the rabbis have testimony about adultery? Kishmul, the Amar Shmuel, b'menafim, in the case of adultery, mishiyiru kimenafim, when he's on top of her and they look like they're engaged in adultery, that's enough. It's amazing. We just started Makos. Mamish just started Makos, and we're already finished the first parak, and now we start the second parak. And I should we are very short-staffed here tonight. I have less people than usual, but I want to thank all those that, even though it's with family and with Chalamoid plans, that managed to make it, as we welcome in Berish and Shimon Klein, Jack Silverman, Shelley Zeitlin, and we welcome in Nachum Mansky, Mark Frankel, A.B. Spry, Yaakov Warman, who I know it wasn't easy to come tonight, Barry Cement, Reb Kiniel, Mo Kushner, Reuven Shannon, Yitzi Muller, Dr. Black, who is that? That's A.B. Spry, I think. A.B. Spry, yeah, A.B. Spry. Is that A.B.? No. Chaim Kramer, Nachman Chapler, Yisrael Fisher, and Dov Solkowitz, Abe Arbach, Avram Rezepkowitz, and maybe David Helfgott. The Gemara. Now we start the second parak for those that are just joining us. Elu hein hagoylin. The following go into exile to the Ari Miklat for killing b'shogeg. Hahoyreg nefesh b'shgaga, when one kills someone unwittingly. Now, the Mishnah tells us that since it says in the pasuk, when he falls upon him, you're chayiv if the killing was done derech yerida, on the way down, but not if it's done derech aliyah, on the way up. So, of course, Barry will give us the illustrations. If he was rolling with a cement trowel on the rooftop. So if he was rolling the roller in a downward motion, v'nafla alav, and it fell from his hand onto Chatzkel's head, v'hargasai, and it killed Chatzkel, or he was lowering down a barrel, v'nafla alav, and it slipped out of his hand and fell on Chatzkel's head, v'hargasai, or Yared B'Sulam, if he was going down a ladder, v'nafla alav, and he fell on Chatzkel v'hargasai, harizeh gaila, because all those things are derech yerida. Avolim hayam ma'ishech b'magila, if he was pulling the trowel upward, v'nafla alav, and it fell on Chatzkel v'hargasai, hayadoila b'chavis, he was raising a barrel, v'nifzak achevel, and a rope split, v'nafla alav, and it fell on him, v'hargasai, and killed him. Or the third case, as we turn, we welcome in Michal Avram. It's about time, Michal Avram. As we turn to Zayin Amid Beis, Haya'oila B'Sulam, if 7b, if he was going up a ladder, V'nafal alav, and he fell on Chatzkel v'hargasai, harizeh eino geila, he doesn't get exiled to an Arei Miklat. As the Mishnah says, Zeh klal, this is the general principle. Kol shebederech yiridasa, if it was on the way down, geila, he's exiled. V'shalei bederech yiridasa, if it wasn't on the way down, eino geila, he's not exiled. So the Gemara says, Minani mili, how do we know that it has to be when he's in a downward activity? Amashmul the Amakra, because the pasuk says, Vayipol alav vayamas, he fell upon him and died. Chatzkel died at sheyipol derech nefila, until it's on the way down. So now we're going to learn and itemize lessons, different cases where we don't exile Barry. Tan Rabbanan, Bishgaga, he's exiled if it was done unwittingly. Prat lemezid, that excludes if he did it willfully. Bevli das, without knowledge. Prat lemeskaven, that would exclude where he had intent. So the Gemara says, well, mezid pshita, of course if he did it willfully, he's not exiled. Barkatulahu, he's executed. Amar Rava ema prat la'omer mutter. It comes to exclude where he says that he thought that it was mutter. Barry, Barry says, I cannot tell a lie. I didn't think that it was forbidden. Right? I didn't think so. Says the Gemara, Amalei Abai i'omer mutter. If he thinks that it's permitted, then anasu, then it's accidental. Says the Gemara, Amalei, no. I thought it was mutter. What are you, in kindergarten? You have to learn that it's not mutter. So Amalei sha'ani ha'omer mutter, if somebody thinks it's permitted to kill someone, karov lemezidu, that's gross negligence. He should have educated himself, and therefore that's not a case of shoygeg. Bivli das, without knowledge, prat lemischaven, that excludes a case of intent. So the Gemara says a case of intent is, again, we put him to death. Mischaven pshita bar katalu, we have to execute him. Amar Rava, no. Even if he intended to kill an animal, Barry was a hunter. He intended to kill a deer, but he killed a human. Problem is, Chavan Laragas, Behem of Aragas Adam. Lakusi, he thought he was going to kill a guy. He was aiming for a mafioso, V'aragas Yisrael. Lenefel, he thought he was killing a fetus, V'arag ben Kayama. In all these cases, since there was a modicum of das, because he had in mind to kill, that's not considered a case where he is exiled. Now, the pasuk says, let me read you the pasuk. The imba pesa, if it happened suddenly, beloy eva, without any hate, hadafa, he pushed him, or hishlich alav kol kli, or threw upon him a vessel, beloy tzedia, and there was no ambush. So it says, that's a case of exile. So Tan Rabbanan, imba pesa, if it was sudden, pratli keren zavis, that comes to exclude where he was holding a knife and he's going around the corner. Now that's not sudden. When he goes around the corner, he should anticipate that somebody might be there, and therefore that's considered karov lamezit. That's not a shoygate. You don't hold Barry when you're going around the corner. You don't hold out a knife, Guys, be very careful in Staten Island when you're turning the corner. Be very careful. Now that's one pshat. There's another pshat that since he's coming around the corner, the victim saw him before he did, and the victim should have moved away, and therefore he's not exiled because it's karov la'oinus. Beloy eva, that there's no enmity, prat l'saynei, that excludes if Barry hates him, so then he doesn't go to Dari Miklat. Hadafai, shedachafai begufai, it means that he pushed him with his body. Now, oy hishlich alav, or if he threw it upon him, so this comes to include lahavi yerida shu tzarech aliyah, where it's a downward motion that's necessary for an upward motion. When, this is almost like, it's almost like a tennis or a pickleball demonstration. In order to get the most impact, the one who wields the knife first goes down. He goes in a downward motion in order that the swing up should have more force. So he goes down and then he goes up. So then there's a bigger arc. So first he goes down, then he goes up. So the going down was a tzarech for going up. Still, even though the going down was a tzarech for going up, if he kills somebody when he was going down initially, he's chai. Beloy tzdiya, without ambush, pratli mischaven litzad zeh v'holchelo litzad acher. He aimed on one side, but it went to the other side. But since he was aiming, so that's not already a case to go to Darei Miklat. It has to be that he wasn't aiming at all. If he was aiming at one side, but it went to the other side, unlucky for the guy, Barry's a bad shot. But he was aiming for one side, so even though it goes to the other side, it's not considered a case that goes to the Darei Miklat. V'asher lo tzada, there was completely no ambush. That means that there was no intent at all. Pratlim ischaven lizrek shtayim, that excludes where he had in mind to throw it 2 amas, but v'zorik arba, it went 4 amas and ended up killing him. But he did have in mind to throw it 2 amas, or he had in mind to throw it 4 amas and went 8 amas. There's no Ari Mikla. V'asher yovo yesrei eyu bayar, and that he goes with his friend in the forest. Now, what's the reason that it says the forest? Mayar rishus lenizik v'lamazik l'kanasham. There was permission both for the assailant, Barry, and the victim to be there. Somebody is not muted. I found him. Okay. Afkol rishus lenizik ulamazik sham. The only time that there's going to be Ari Miklad is only a place where both Barry and his victim Chatzkel could be. But if it was in Barry's backyard and Chatzkel had no permission to be there, so it's not like a forest, So then Barry wouldn't be chayiv. So now, Boy Minei Rabbi Avol Rabbi Yochanan, Haya Oyla Besulam. It's an interesting shayla. Barry was going up on a ladder. V'nishma tashliva mitachtav, and a rung underneath him slipped out. Right? It got dislodged. V'nafla v'harga, and he fell down and he killed the person. Now here Barry was walking up, but the rung got dislodged and his foot went down. Ki gavna aliyahi, is that considered going up? Or yuridahi, because when he was put his foot down on the rung to climb up, that's going down. Amalei, so he said kvar negata, we already included biyurida shitzarach aliyah. We said that this is a case where his foot goes down in order to go up, and we said that that's considered derech yerida. Eisvei za klal kol shebederech yeridasa geila. Whatever is downward is exiled. Shaloik derech yeridasa eina geila. But if it's not in a downward motion, he's not exiled. Shaloik derech yeridasa lasiyei mai. What it could have said if it's derech aliyah, he's not. When it says shaloik derech yeridasa lasiyei mai, it doesn't have to say it. It already said that kol shebederech yeridasa geila. So if it's not derech yeridasa, it's not geila. Why does it repeat shaloik derech yeridasa eina geila? It doesn't mean shaloik derech yeridasa if it's not on the way down lasiyei mai. Isn't it to include this case where he's climbing up, but his foot was going down? Lav lasiyei kai gavna, says the Gemara. Uletamech, according to you, kol shebederech yeridasa, it says the word kol. Anything downward l'suyei mai. What is that coming to include? Ella l'suyei katzav, both kol shebederech yeridasa chayiv, that includes a butcher. Hachanami l'suyei katzav. Here also, it's to include a butcher. So now this is really like a pickleball clinic. Mamish, like a pickleball clinic. You know, when they teach you how to swing, they break the swing down into every point where you're holding the racket. And you lift it up, when you go back, when you go forward, the follow through, right? They break down every point of the swing. So over here, the Gemara breaks down the swing of the butcher to 5 points. It's really very interesting. Point 1, the butcher first brings it down in order, like we said, to get more of strength in the upward swing. So point 1 is bringing it down. 2 is bringing it up to the shoulder. 3 is bringing it down to the back. 4 is bringing it back up to the shoulder. And then 5 is wham. So we got 5 points. Right? Barry knows this. This is, Mama Lushin to him. They taught this to him in when he was, with the mafia.
I just took a gun, Rabbi Weiss. I don't have any problems. Thank you.
Yeah. So the boy, he even denies my examples. Barry, we know you're a jack of the knife also, the machetes and all these things. Tell it to the judge. But anyway, so again, let me review this. Barry, it'll tell me if I got it wrong. First, he brings the knife down. That's 1. Then he brings it up to his shoulder. That's 2. Then it down to his back. That's 3. Back up to the shoulder. That's 4. And wham! Down. 5. So, okay. So now, obviously, of these 5 points, which ones are going to be chayiv in galus? Number 1, when he goes down. Number 3, when he goes to the back, that's downward. And number 5, when he comes down. So 1, 3, and 5 are downward motions. And 2 and 4, down, up, that's 2, 3, and 4, back up. So 2 and 4 are upward motions. So 1, 3, and 5 are downward motions, and 2 and 4 are upward motions. So now let's see how the Gemara breaks this down into 4 brises. Really, really fascinating. Right out of pickleball school. Tana Chada, we learned in Brisa, Lefanav Chayiv, in front it's Chayiv, La'acharav Potter, in back it's Potter. V'tani Idach La'acharav Chayiv, to his back he's Chayiv, Lefanav Potter, in front is Potter. V'tani Idach Bein Lefanav Bein La'acharav Chayiv, both in front and in back is Chayiv. V'tani Idach Bein Lefanav Bein La'acharav Potter, both in front and in back is Potter from Galus. So now the Gemara says, well, like Kasha. So, the first brisa, which says, Lefanav Chayiv and La'acharav Potter, if it's in front, he's Chayiv. If it's in back, he's Potter. So, we know that Lefanav means where that's talking about B'yerida Shelefanav, that's 1, where he puts his arm down, so that's a Yerida Shelefanav, that's Chai, because that's Derech Yerida. And then V'aliyah Shelacharav, and when he's Potter, La'acharav, it means when he picks his hand up to his shoulder, so that's an aliyah to the back, so there he's going to be potter, because that's derech aliyah. That's, so 1 is chayiv, 2 is potter. Can, when it says la'acharav chayiv and lefanav potter, so la'acharav means number 3, right? 1, he goes down, 2, and then 3, pulling it behind his back. So when it says la'acharav chayiv, that means when it says la'acharav chayiv lefanav potter, so ba'aliyah shelefanav v'yerida shelacharav. Number 3, when he goes down behind him, that's the case that la'acharav is chayiv. The case of lefanav potter is when he brings it, when he brings it back up, and that's number 4. When he brings it back up, so then he's going to be potter, because that's derech aliyah. Now, where it's both yerida and where it's both lefanav and la'acharav chayiv, can be yerida shelefanav. So where are you chayiv lefanav? 1, when he puts it down first, and where are you chayiv when acharav? That's 3, when he brings it down to his back. So that's also derech yerida, so he's going to be chayiv in those cases. Where is it where both lefanav and yerida is potter? Well, that's easy. Where is it both lefanav and la'acharav is potter? It's where first he after going down, he comes up So that's potter because that's derech aliyah. And then after going back, he brings it back up. That's also potter. So 2 and 4 are both potter. Kan be aliyah shalafanav b'shalachra. The aliyah in front, and that's 2 after going down, coming back up, and then 4 after going to the back, coming back up. Both of those are derech yerida, and both of those are going to be potter. Lema ketanoi, says the Gemara. Let's say that this case of the rung that gets dislodged under Barry's feet and he falls down, let's say it's a machlokes tanayim. Ha'ya'ayla b'sulam, if he was going up a ladder, v'nishmeta shliva metachtav, and the rung gets dislodged, tani chada chayiv, one says he's chayiv, v'tani yida pater. My lab b'hakamifligi, the mar saba yerida, it's considered downward, because even though he's going up, but he's putting his foot down on the rung, so that's considered a yerida l'tzarech aliyah is also considered derech yerida. The mar saba yeridahi, or mar saba aliyahi, since he's ultimately going up, it's derech aliyah and he's pater. Says in Malay, the kuli alma aliyah, he's walking up the ladder, that's all considered an aliyah. However, v'loy kasha kan l'nizakin kan l'galus. If he falls down and he hurts someone, then adamud la'ilam and he's chayiv. If he kills someone, that's considered derech aliyah and he's pater. Both are talking about exile. V'loy kasha hadi isla hadi lo yasliya. Hadi asliya hadi lo yasliya. It depends if the rung was wormy. If the rung was wormy, then when he stepped on it, it sagged. If it sagged, then it's considered derech yerida. If it wasn't wormy, so it didn't sag, then it's considered derech aliyah. It wasn't wormy. If the rung was tight, so then that's derech aliyah. If it was loose, so then when he stepped on it, it sagged, then it would be considered derech yerida, and then he would be chayiv. Okay, Rabbi said we'll stop over here. Again, tomorrow night at 8:15, we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis now. Don't go anywhere. Whether there's going to be a Wednesday night shir this week is still up in the air. We do not have a sponsor yet. If anybody wants to sponsor it, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. And now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.